And welcome to Book Talk Tuesday. Today I'm going to talk to you about some fantasy and sci-fi favorites. I must admit, this isn't my favorite genre. I really have to stretch myself to read fantasy and to read science fiction, but there are a few that I have read that I truly love. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to get into them, or I have to get a really good recommendation from one of my students to kind of pick it up. But these ones that I'm going to talk to you about today, they're all ones that students have loved and have been passed around many times over the years. So let's go. First one is The City of Ember. This is a series, so it's the first book of Ember. It's about a couple kids. It's kind of dystopian with a society that's kind of they have certain jobs and certain kind of gifts and things like that. But basically, they're on a search for electricity, and these kids kind of know that something's different and something exists, and they go in the search for it, and kind of leads them through different underground pipes and things like that. It's kind of adventure-y. It's really great learning about a different society and how it kind of works. And it's a series, so if you like the first one, you can read the other books. It's also really good to read out loud. I have read this one out loud, I think, a few years ago to a class, and they really enjoyed it. So you can use this as a read out loud teacher, The City of Ember. Another one that I really like, and unfortunately I went down to my bookshelves and I can't find number one. I think an old student still has it. I think I actually know who, and but it's okay. If you take a book, you take a book because you love it. This is the Lunar Chronicles. The first one is Cinder. They all kind of parallel a fairy tale, so Cinder, Cinderella. However, they're science fiction-y. The Lunar Chronicles, the lunar is like the moon, and there's people who are from the moon society, and they kind of don't get along with the people on Earth, and lots of people on Earth have some kind of scientific parts of them, and they're seen as outcasts, and it's kind of all how it works together. And it again is a series. There's 4 books in the series. So if you like the first one, it kind of takes you on a few adventures with the whole kind of contrast between who's in power and who is meant to be in power, and some different misses kind of with who should be in charge and what they've kind of been left with. So that's the Lunar Chronicles series. This one's Scarlet. There is Cress, and there's Winter, and the first one, of course, is Cinder. Another one I love, this is a really well-loved series. Again, it's not just for boys. Many girls like it. I actually read many of these ones, and it takes me a lot to read a series. I usually just read the first one, but I read lots of these when they first came out. The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson series. Percy Jackson is the main character in here, and he finds out that his father is a Greek god, and therefore he is half god. And he goes to kind of a certain camp for kids that are the children of these Greek gods, and he has to kind of battle out certain different creatures, different myths and things like that from Greek mythology. You learn a lot from these. You learn tons about Greek mythology because it kind of teaches you as you read the different stories, and they're really great. I can't remember how many are in the series, but there's tons of them, and they're really amazing. And there's a movie, I think, about the first one. I'm not sure if there's any others, but it's great. The Lightning Thief series, the Percy Jackson stuff, fabulous stuff. Another kind of science fiction-y fantasy type one is The Red Queen. This is an ongoing series that's kind of still going right now. Basically in this, there's the Reds. They have red blood, and then there's the Silvers, and they have silver blood. The people who have silver blood, they're kind of seen as higher in society, and the Reds are lower, but they start to rebel, and there's a big conflict between them. There's this girl, Mare, and she is born red. However, she has silver powers, and so she's quite a contrast. And she starts to learn about the Silver Kingdom. She gets kind of brought into it, but it's not everything she expected. I actually really enjoyed this book, so much so that I read the second one, reading the third one. I really, really like them. They're really engaging. They're really high pace, and there is a little bit of romance in them for those of you that like that. Another one that's been very popular over the many years is one of my favorite authors, Kenneth Opel. He writes Silverwing. Silverwing, there's a little bat in here named Shade, and he's kind of like the runt of his bat colony or bat group or whatever. And he basically gets lost as they're traveling, and he has to kind of make it back to get with his colony again of where they're kind of migrating. And he encounters tons of trouble, bad bats, good bats, and all different things that help him and hinder him on the way. Again, another series. There's Sunwing, Darkwing, another one. Anyways, it's a really, really great one, Silverwing by Kenneth Opel. This one is, I don't know why this series isn't more known, because I've never had a boy in my classroom not obsess. And by obsess, I mean like obsess over this series called Lockdown Escape from Furnace. I think there's 6 books, and if you get hooked on the first one, the kids that I have had read all of them. They're so obsessed with the series. It's basically this kid gets framed for a murder, and he has to go into this jail, but it's like a really bad, creepy jail with scary things. And he wants to try and escape because these black coats, these guys are kind of awful, and he's trapped. But the whole thing, he was framed. So he's trying to figure out who framed him and why, and what this whole like crazy furnace type jail is. And the people that I have put this book into their hands, again, they get like crazy obsessed about it. Okay, the last one. I'm going to try and be quick. Last one is a magnificent series, The Land of Stories. It's all about these 2 kids in here. Their grandmother has a book, and they actually get transported into the world of the book, which is all fairy tales, and they meet all the different characters through fairy tales that you have known to come and love from your childhood. But they also have to try and make it out of the book in this first one, and kind of help certain characters with different problems as they go, with all the different wicked queens and the lovely princesses and all the different things that happen in magical forests and the different kingdoms. I believe the 6th one just came out this past summer, 5th or 6th. Anyways, it's a great series. It's by Chris Colfer, who was in that TV show that I can't remember the name of right now, but they say, Glee. Yeah, he was one of the characters in Glee. So he wrote all these books, and they're really great. I've read this first one, and it's really interesting. It's kind of got some funny parts and some suspenseful parts, and it's great to make connections with, because most people know those fairy tales that you've heard from when you were a child, and now these kids are experiencing it. So those are what I do, about 7 different books, sci-fi fantasy. I do like to try and stretch myself and read those genres that aren't really my best as much as I can, but they're hit or miss for me, but those ones were all hits for me. So I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. See you next time.